I first saw the door at 3:17 in the morning. I remember the exact time because the clock on my phone changed while I was staring at it. 3:16, then 3:17. And suddenly, there was a door at the end of the hallway. It wasn't supposed to be there. I had lived in that apartment for 11 days. I knew the hallway 6 steps from my bedroom to the bathroom, from more to the kitchen, a narrow wall at the very end, stained yellow from years of humidity. There had never been a door. I stood in the darkness, holding my phone, telling myself that exhaustion was making me see things. I had been working 12-hour night shifts at the hospital. I was barely sleeping. My boyfriend had left me 3 weeks earlier. I had moved into the apartment because it was cheap, quiet, and close enough to the hospital that I could walk home after work. I needed somewhere I could disappear. Apparently, I had found exactly that. The door was old, dark wood, brass handle, a small number was nailed into it. I didn't touch it. I went back to bed. The next morning the door was gone. There was only the yellow wall. I checked my phone. No photographs, no strange notifications, nothing. I almost laughed at myself. Almost. Then I noticed something on my bedside table. A photograph. It showed my bedroom, my bed, my lamp, and me sleeping. I stared at it for several seconds before I understood what I was looking at. The photograph had been taken from the doorway. The problem was that my bedroom door had been locked from the inside, and I was certain nobody had been standing there. I turned the photograph over. Someone had written 3 words on the back. "Don't open it." I threw it away. That night I stayed awake until 3 a.m. At 3:16, I was sitting on my bed, staring at the hallway. At 3:17 the door appeared again. I watched it happen. There was no flash, no sound. 1 second, the wall was empty. The next, the door was there. I grabbed my phone and took a picture. The screen showed nothing but the yellow wall. I looked up, the door was still there. I took another picture, same thing. I didn't sleep that night. The following evening, I asked the building caretaker about it. His name was Mang Thomas. He was an old man who seemed to know everything that happened inside the building. When I mentioned the door, he stopped cleaning the lobby. He looked at me for a long time. Then he asked what time. 3:17. His face changed. "Don't go near it," I swallowed. "You know about it." He lowered his voice. "Everyone who stays here long enough knows." "What is it?" He shook his head. "Not what. Who?" I waited. He looked toward the stairs. "Elias." The name meant nothing to me. "Who is Elias?" "The tenant before you." "What happened to him?" Mang Thomas didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "He disappeared." "When?" 3 years ago. I felt cold. "Did they find him?" "No." That night I searched the internet. Elias Reyes, former tenant, missing person. There were almost no results. Then I found an old Facebook post from 3 years earlier. A photograph of a young man standing outside the apartment building. Elias. He looked ordinary. Dark hair, thin face, tired eyes. The caption said, "Please come home." I stared at the photograph. Something bothered me. I zoomed in. Behind Elias was the hallway, and at the end of it was a door. Number 317. My stomach tightened. I called Mang Thomas. He didn't answer. I called again, nothing. At 3:17, the door appeared. This time there was something hanging from the handle. A photograph. I walked closer. It was Elias. He was standing inside the room. Behind him were dozens of photographs pinned to the walls. I could see beds, bedrooms, people sleeping. I dropped the photograph. The door opened by itself, only an inch. A smell came from inside. Old paper. Dust. And something faintly sweet, like flowers left too long in water. I should have run instead. I whispered, "Elias." Something moved behind the door. Then a voice answered my voice. "Don't open it." I slammed my bedroom door and locked it. For the first time since moving in, I called the police. They came the next morning. I showed them the photograph. They searched the apartment. They found nothing. No hidden room, no door, no photographs. One officer suggested I needed rest. I wanted to believe him. Then he asked me why there was a photograph of Elias on my phone. I looked at my screen. The photograph was gone, but another one had appeared. It showed me sitting in the police station, taken from behind my shoulder. The timestamp said 3:17 a.m. I hadn't been there at 3:17. I had been asleep, or I thought I had. That evening, I didn't go to work. I packed a bag. I was leaving at 3 a.m. I stood beside the apartment door with my keys in my hand. I checked the hallway, nothing. I smiled. Maybe it was over. Then the clock changed. 3:17. The lights went out. A door appeared at the end of the hallway. This time, it was already open. I could see inside. The room was small. The walls were covered in photographs, hundreds of them. Some were old, some were recent. People sleeping, people eating, people sitting alone. Every photograph had a time written underneath. 3:17 a.m. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me. I eyed into it. The handle wouldn't move. Then I saw a photograph on the floor. It showed Elias. He was sitting in the same room. His hands were pressed against the glass of the camera lens. Underneath the photograph was a date, August 18th, 2023, 3 years ago. I picked it up. A voice whispered behind me, "You came back." I turned. Elias was standing against the wall. He looked exactly like the photograph. Not older, not thinner, not dead, just tired. I couldn't speak. He looked at me and smiled sadly. "I warned you. How do I get out?" "You don't." My chest tightened. "What is this place?" He looked around. A room between minutes. I didn't understand. He pointed toward the photographs. "Everyone thinks the room appears at 3:17. He shook his head. "It doesn't. It waits at 3:17. I stared at him. "Why me?" Elias looked away. "Because you lived here before." I laughed. Double quotes, "No, I've never been here." He walked toward one of the photographs. He pulled it from the wall. It showed a little girl sitting on a hospital bed. Her face was blurred, but I recognized the room. I recognized the stuffed rabbit beside her. I recognized the scar above the child's eyebrow. My hand went to my forehead. I had that scar. Elias looked at me. "You were 7. Memories came back in fragments. A hospital. My mother crying. A hallway, a door. Someone telling me not to open it. Then nothing. I stepped backward. "That's impossible." Elias shook his head. "You opened it." The room began to change. The photographs moved. Hundreds of images fluttered across the walls. I saw myself at 7, at 15, at 20, then yesterday, then tonight, then a photograph I hadn't seen before. It showed me standing in this room. Behind me was Elias, and behind him was another door. Number 317. I turned toward the wall. There was no second door. Then I heard knocking, 3 slow knocks. From inside the wall. Elias whispered, "It's time." The photographs began falling, one by one. Until only one remained. It showed me lying in my bed. Sleeping beside me was a chair. Someone was sitting in it. I leaned closer. The person in the chair was me. Older, paler. Watching myself sleep. I looked at Elias. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the door. He opened it. The hallway outside was dark. "You have to leave before 3:18. I've checked my phone. 3:17. Only seconds remained. I ran. I crossed the doorway the moment I stepped into the hallway. The door disappeared. The lights came back on. My phone read 3:18. I fell to the floor. I was crying, laughing, breathing, alive. I thought it was over. I packed everything I owned and left the apartment before sunrise. I never went back. 3 days later, Mang Tomas called me. His voice was shaking. He said the apartment was empty. Then he asked me something that made my blood run cold. "Who is Elias?" I told him the tenant who disappeared. There was silence. Then Mang Tomas whispered, "Elias was the caretaker's son." I stopped breathing. "Your son?" "No," he paused. "The previous caretaker's son." I didn't understand, Mang Tomas. I saw him. "You couldn't have. Why?" "Because Elias disappeared 27 years ago." I dropped the phone. I searched the internet again. This time, I found an old newspaper article. A 7-year-old girl had disappeared from a hospital in Manila. Her name was Mara Santos. The girl was found hours later in an apartment building. Alive. Unharmed. She remembered nothing. The article included one photographed at a little girl sitting on a hospital bed, a stuffed rabbit beside her, a small scar above her eyebrow. Me. At the bottom of the article was a handwritten note from the investigator. "Child claims a man named Elias brought her back." I read the sentence again. Then I noticed the date. August 18th, 1999. Exactly 27 years before today. I looked at the clock. 3:17 a.m. My phone vibrated. A photograph had appeared in my messages. No sender. It showed my old apartment, the hallway, the yellow wall, and the door number. 317. Someone had written a message underneath you. Left him there. I stared at it. Then another photograph arrived. This one showed Elias standing inside the room. He was holding the hand of a little girl. The little girl was me, and for the first time, I remembered what happened that night. Elias hadn't brought me into the room. I had brought him. I had opened the door, and when I escaped, I left him behind. My phone screen went black. For a moment, I saw my reflection. Then another face appeared behind me. Elias, he smiled and whispered the words I had been trying to remember for 27 years. Your turn to stay. The clock changed. 3:18. And somewhere inside my apartment, a door slowly opened.